You think Samsung and Apple are enemies, but every time you buy an iPhone, Samsung gets paid, and it's bigger than you think. We see the commercials, the Super Bowl ads, the massive marketing budgets, built entirely around the idea that Apple and Android are locked in a zero-sum war. This hostility is highly documented. For over a decade, these two corporations have dragged each other through the courts over patent infringements and stolen designs. But look past the courtroom draw and physically open up an iPhone, and a different picture emerges. A massive percentage of the OLED displays, the NAND flash storage, and the DRAM memory chips are all manufactured by Samsung. The war you see in the store is an illusion. Before a single iPhone ships, Apple has already cut a check to its greatest rival. To understand how this works, we have to look at the actual scale of Samsung. The phones you see in carrier stores are just a tiny fraction of a massive global conglomerate. Samsung Electronics is split into highly specialized divisions. While Samsung Mobile is the public face making Galaxy phones, operating quietly in the background are Samsung Display and Samsung Semiconductor. This chart illustrates the financial reality between these branches. In years when memory chip demand is strong, the operating profits of the semiconductor division routinely dwarf the phone division by up to 3 times. And who is buying all those highly profitable components? Apple is consistently one of Samsung Semiconductor's largest and most reliable customers. Billions of dollars move steadily from Cupertino to South Korea every single year, locked in through contracts negotiated years in advance of any phone release. This creates a fascinating dynamic where Samsung's most lucrative division literally depends on Apple's continued success. Making consumer phones is the face of the operation. The infrastructure layer is the actual business. This architecture is intentional. Decades ago, Samsung made a strategic bet to own the upstream supply chain rather than only competing for retail buyers. Executing that bet required pouring hundreds of billions of dollars into complex manufacturing facilities, building the physical infrastructure needed to act as the world's premier component factory. Operating at that scale creates a massive barrier to entry. No consumer brand can quickly replicate a multi-billion-dollar fabrication network. Apple has certainly tried to escape. They've spent years diversifying their suppliers and designing their own custom silicon in-house. But building at an iPhone scale requires manufacturing at a Samsung scale, and there are very few entities on Earth capable of doing that. The genius of this position is the built-in insurance. If a new Galaxy phone flops, Samsung easily survives by absorbing the profit from the components they sell to everyone else. If the new iPhone is a massive hit, Samsung gets rich off the parts. At the corporate level, they do not care who wins the smartphone war, because they are the arms dealer supplying the weapons to both sides. This dynamic is a perfect example of what we call the Byproduct Framework. This diagram shows how it works. The public-facing product you buy is often a marketing vehicle, the tiny top layer, for a massive hidden infrastructure business underneath that actually generates the profit. We've seen this exact pattern before with Tesla. The consumer cars rolling off the line are the byproduct. The durable business lies in their energy grid, autonomous driving data, and manufacturing intellectual property. For entrepreneurs, the lesson is straightforward. Do not spend all your energy fighting at the surface consumer level. Instead, aim to own the platforms, the distribution, and the supply chains that your competitors are forced to use. If you're an investor, look for the companies selling shovels in a gold rush. The strongest portfolios are built on businesses whose client lists heavily feature their own apparent competitors. And in your own career, the goal is to become that indispensable hub. Build a resource, an expertise, or a relationship network that the rest of your field absolutely requires to function. Once you see this architecture, you start noticing it everywhere. Take a close look at your other favorite global brands and trace where the money actually flows. The most durable businesses don't fight for a consumer's attention. They quietly build the infrastructure underneath the battlefield.